Wonderland. We are an Arsenal podcast. With me tonight, it's only Kris Carpenter. Howdy doody.
Hello, Danny. I can't see you there. Hello. Anyone watching this in podcast form, that joke is wasted on all of you.
If anybody's on the bus, Kris just did the Pepe goal scoring celebration, I think he did, where he's looking for ships on the horizon.
Indeed. Looking for pirate booty.
We're going to try and get this done in 15 minutes or less. We're just going to be talking about Nicolas Pepe because Kris, as we all know, is a mastermind when it comes to French football, though everyone's mean to him about it. He's the first one we go to when we want to know about a French footballer. And so we're going to be doing that today. It was announced. Was it today it was announced? Yeah, today it was announced. Yeah. £72 million signing of Nicolas Pepe. So, Kris, tell us a little bit about the history of Nicolas and what he did at his previous club.
The history of Nicolas. Yeah, well, the first thing to say is this is a really exciting signing for Arsenal. It's been a weird old week, hasn't it? Like, I'm not really sure I understand this whole transfer players coming in. It's very strange.
Madness.
But yes, to speak about Nicolas Pepe, he's a hugely talented player. This is a really, really exciting signing. I can't genuinely remember the last time I looked at a signing and thought, wow. We've actually just done something that I never ever in a million years thought we would do. I will quote a tweet that I posted not that long ago, just to make myself look an idiot, but I'll save that for later. But what we know about Nicolas Pepe basically is he was a little bit of a raw, unknown player when he came through the ranks. He came through a semi-professional side, Poitiers, I believe they're pronounced in France. He went to Angers, played for their B team for a couple of seasons. He had a brief fleeting tease with the first team, but didn't play any games. Eventually got his kind of breakthrough season, really, which was with Angers, which netted him the move to Lille. I think it's fair to say when Lille signed him, I believe it's around about was it 2 million, or I think it's a bit less. It was certainly a small figure back in 2017-18, and I don't think they really knew what sort of player they were getting, other than the fact he's quite quick and he's a player who can get in behind, and he might add a little bit of something extra to Lille. Lille
9 million.
9 million. There we go. Okay. When he went to Lille, he was under the tutelage of the now Leeds manager Marcelo Bielsa, El Loco, as some will know him, and I think a lot of people thought he would thrive under that management because of his style. He's a very much Bielsa player, all energy, all action, pace, power. But Lille had a pretty terrible season 2 years back under Bielsa, which saw him lose his job, and I think it's fair to say at that point Lille were a club in the doldrums. Danny, you'll remember when Lille had Eden Hazard back before, or more back when they were sort of on the map, if you will.
Because the season before last, Lille finished 1 point above relegation.
Yes.
The French playoff league. So they finished 17 out of 20 and 18th place as a playoff with Ligue 2.
Yeah, and they really were a car crash at that particular point in time. Obviously Bielsa moved on. The thing that sort of you couldn't really put your finger on exactly what changed about their style of play, but as soon as they got the new coach in Christophe Galtier, everything seemed to change around, everything seemed to turn around. They put an emphasis essentially on youth, and that was the main thing they wanted to do. They wanted to bring through younger players, and wanted to get that. There was a sort of a brief period of time where they had a Portuguese assistant coach whose name escapes me, but he came in briefly before Galtier, and he came into the job saying that the emphasis from Lille moving forward was to try and get players like Pepe through the ranks, promote from within almost, and bring through players they brought in for low fees.
Sacramento.
Thank you, bless you. And then Galtier came in and took that project forward, and it was last season that Pepe really hit the ground running. A lot of people who don't watch anything French football was, so he scored a lot of penalties. Yeah, he also won a lot of penalties, and as you all know, Danny, from over the years, getting a penalty doesn't mean you're going to score it. You still got to put it away. But he was widely regarded as one of, if not the key player in Lille's season last year. their run to second place in Champions League qualification was also sort of bookended, if you like, with a thrashing of PSG towards the end of the season, which was in a game where Pepe starred along with Jonathan Bamba, who's their other opposite winger, if you will, playing from the left. And they tore defences to shreds. It should be said, Jonathan Ikone is another player that Lille had at the time who Pepe formed a really good understanding with. He broke into the Ivorian national side, which, it sounds like, oh yeah, well, of course he'd be in the Ivorian national side, but they've got some talented players there. He's managed to make the step up. And then this summer, it was widely reported that he was going to go to one of the big clubs in Europe who could afford him, which I thought ruled us out. He was in talks with Bayern Munich, or his agent was at one point, and Bayern essentially said, no, we're not going to go for him. Chelsea were credited with a sniff, as were Liverpool, Man United, or I'm led to believe that wasn't particularly serious. And then all of a sudden, these rumours about us started coming out. I don't think any of us really felt that it was doable or possible. I certainly didn't. I think we got a tweet from our Lord and Saviour, Mr. David Ornstein, which I'm just trying to find on my timeline now, where he essentially sort of came out and said that we were interested, and I'll freely admit I kind of laughed it off. I'm just trying to find the tweet now, but and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this link grows and grows and grows. Before you know it, here he is, and I'm as shocked as anybody. I just didn't see it coming, and we've got ourselves not just a player who's better than what we were looking at, Louis Saha, of course, not just a player who's better than Zaha. He's a player who I think would walk into most Premier League sides right now. That is how good he is, and his style of play is going to excite the fans. I'm quite interested to see where he plays, because he is naturally a right midfielder or a right winger, right attacking midfielder. We've kind of got a couple of those, and we've also got Aubameyang, who can sort of play from the right. So I wonder if they might play Pepe on the opposite side and get him to cut in, or maybe get him and Aubameyang to swap over. I'm saying all this now, of course, before we sell Aubameyang and Lacazette to Ipswich for a combined £10 next week.
It's part of his game, like with Perez, who was notoriously a left winger, but he was right-footed, and then he used to always drop back and then cut in. Is that part of Pepe's game, or will he be able to adapt to playing right-footed on the right wing and doing everything outside rather than cutting in, well, not having to do a Robin every time?
Yeah, well, that's what interests me, because he is predominantly left-footed, but he is a traditional sort of right winger, so he does like to come inside. But I think the same could be said of Aubameyang, because he's predominantly right-footed. I think I'm going out on a limb now. I'm pretty sure he is, and I'm going to check that, because if I'm wrong, I'm going to look like
you carry on talking. I'll check it. Well, I'm pretty sure. Said, will he cut back when he's I meant on the left hand side? Can he play on the left hand side and just use his left foot for doing all of his crossing and work, rather than the right side with his left foot and having to cut back in? But we all know at Arsenal Football Club we don't do crossing the ball, so I don't think he'll have too much to worry about with that. But no, I think what will be really good is if we've seen a lot of Aubameyang in pre-season play wide, on those wide areas, and I wonder if that's maybe the thinking behind this move. It adds genuine depth and competition. I think all of us have been saying for probably as far back as Mark Overmars really was the last time we had a proper out and out pacey wide player. You mentioned Perez. Oh, thank God for that. See, you mentioned Robert Pires, who came in as a sort of a wide midfielder, but he, in his Marseille and his Metz days, was very much back in the days of 4-4-2. He wasn't in the modern era of the sort of a wide player who goes and joins the front line. And it was only when Arsene Wenger put him and Freddie into the wide spots of a 4-4-2 that we saw the best out of Perez. So I think that since Overmars, this is the first proper winger we've signed. Jovino doesn't count, by the way, for anyone who's wondering. But it's just so exciting, and he's just a player that I think a lot has been said over this summer about the ambition of the club, about its ownership. I mean, I think it's much ado about nothing. See what I did there? But no, credit where credit's due. Since Edu has come in, there was that picture, wasn't there, of Josh Kroenke in his Holofrand approved New Balance trainers.
talking to Raul and Vinny, which still sounds like Punch and Judy in the modern era. And whatever they said or whatever that conversation was, they found some money down the back of the sofa. We all know this is going to be paid over a period of time. It's going to be over 5 years, and I know a few people have
20 million up front and the rest over 5 years.
Yeah, and that's the modern day. Somebody quoted on a podcast that I listened to the other day, Nicolas Anelka, it took Real Madrid 10 years to pay us for him, So
I think they still owe us for Van Bronckhorst, Barcelona.
Yeah, I think we're still paying off Anders Limpar's dodgy knees, but that is the modern day. Is that you don't blow your balls in one cup. You distribute it over several cups, don't you, John?
I'll give you an example about that. When Barcelona, they had Giovanni Van Bronckhorst offers, which didn't work out when he came to us from Rangers. And then part of the deal, that a couple of years after he went there, we went there on loan, then they bought him. Part of the deal for the final payment for Van Bronckhorst, they gave us Cesc Fabregas, or we took him because they couldn't keep him because I think the laws over there for how young a player can be and get a full-time contract is younger than what it is here. So they knew it was coming here. So they said, look, I think something along the lines of, you can have Cesc, we now owe you no more money for Van Bronckhorst 2 or 3 years after he signed for them. They all do it.
Yeah, and I think Petit and Overmars went in the same summer? Yeah. That was a very similar structured deal, wasn't it? We'll pay you over a period of time. It's the modern way, and this is why when people said about this budget of 45 million, I just kind of rolled my eyes every time, because if we were quite happy to settle for 8th or 9th, fine, we'd have only spent 45 million quid. But we've clearly spent very wisely. We've brought in players that have really improved the squad. I don't think we're done yet. So, there's plenty of room to change things even further. But just bringing it back around to Pepe again, it's so nice to see so many Arsenal fans genuinely excited again and banded together. Of course, that will all go out the window when we lose 5-0 at Newcastle on the opening day of the season. But until then, it's really good. It's really united the fan base again. And leaving stats aside, because I know a lot of people like stats. That's your job, Danny. I'll let you divulge those in a minute. But just purely from a Ligue 1 follower and someone like myself who does watch and host a fantastic podcast, French Football Weekly, if you want to tune in. I've seen a lot. I saw a lot of him last year because Lille were that side that a lot of people wanted to watch. They were the breakaway side. They were the unexpected side, like we covered earlier on. They were never expected to be anywhere near the levels they got to last season, and a couple of their players, Thiago Mendes is another one who was sold on to Lyon this summer for good money. They've made stars, but Pepe was by far and away that outstanding player. And the thing that I love about him is he's fearless, he's quick, he's direct, he's everything that people get frustrated with Alex Iwobi for. He's not, and that's not to have a go at Alex Iwobi at all, because I still think he'll become a very, very good player for us in the long run. But Pepe, whilst he is raw, and people have to remember he is 24, it will take him a bit of time to settle. He could be and could have the impact that Alexis Sanchez had when we signed him, and that's quite a compliment. That's quite a statement. But he's that good, and he offers us genuine raw pace, which we have in Aubameyang, but he is obviously getting up there in years. We don't have it anywhere else on the pitch, I would argue. And we needed that directness. And he's a player that's unknown, and a player that is going to tear certain defences to pieces, I think. He will win us free kicks and fouls, which is another bonus, until Granit Xhaka puts them over the bar, of course. I'm joking. And he's a really exciting, talented player. And if you pair him in the right side, I mean, that front three is, my balls are tingling now just at the thought of it. It's
How do you see the front three ideally lining up?
I think they pick
the front five. I
think they pick themselves. I think Lacazette, Aubameyang and Pepe is, what more could you ask for than that? That's
we saw last season that Aubameyang had the ability to drift in behind to play the 10, either side, either wing, the 7 and the 11, and play up front. Can we expect that? Lacazette up front, and then the other two just doing circles round and round, sending defenders crazy because they don't know who to follow. Both drifting out wide, both playing a little bit deeper. Can they both do it? So what we've seen from Aubameyang, we can expect to see the same from Pepe.
Yeah, I think you'll get that. And the other thing you get with Pepe as well is work rate. He's a workhorse. He's a bit of a mercurial talent. He will. I'll be honest with you, you will see games where he will drift in and out of games. That is the type of player he is. But when he's on his game and when he's running at defenders, he will give you that work rate. If he loses the ball, he will chase back. He will, he will go back and win possession for the team and then give it on to somebody else and go again. He makes those intricate movements. He's deceptively good at sort of quick feet as well, a little bit like Lacazette is. A lot of people don't give him the credit he deserves for how quick his feet is. And the thing with Pepe, I think he's 6 foot. I want to say 6'1".
Exactly.
Is 6 foot dead, is he? So he's quite rangy. For a guy who is so quick, he's tall as well. So that gives him that sort of added little bit of whiz, if you will, down the wing. Because a lot of wide players you associate it being quite small and nippy. He's a physical presence, and that's another thing Arsenal have lacked so much in recent years. And the other thing that I really like about his play as well, and we saw this a lot with Lille last season, is Lille essentially played a very similar style to what we do in terms of sort of one out-and-out front man towards the end of the season was Loic Remy, who Newcastle fans and QPR fans might remember well. And then Jonathan Ikone would often play in the 10 with Bamba to the left and Pepe to the right. And essentially those three players behind Remy or Rafael Leao for a period of time as well, they're completely free-formed. They were open flowing players. They could change over whenever they wanted. And you'd often see Pepe in the centre forward role with Leao or Remy dropping deep, or you'd see Ikone push on and Pepe coming to the 10. So he's not one dimensional. He's not a player who's just gonna run down the wing and punt it into the stands. He is a guy who will get the ball out of his feet, push it past the defender, and get onto the other end of it. And he's selfless. He has got the assisting in him. I would say that I'd say he's more likely to be a man who's going to shoot for goal. More likely than he is to lay it on a plate for somebody else, because it is what? Sorry,
his accuracy. Is he a Xhaka or like a Giroud, you need one shot in 6 to score?
No, I wouldn't say so. And again, if you just look at his record from last season, for example, he got 11 assists and 22 goals, which is almost perfect symmetry, isn't it, in terms of things? So, whilst I'm sort of saying that he generally will go for goal, I'm not saying he won't assist. But no, in terms of his accuracy and his numbers, no, he's not a player who frets in front of goal. And if I'm honest with you, and I'd have said at the start of last season, would he become a £70 million player this summer? I probably would have said no. I think he was raw. I think he had a lot to learn. But it's amazing what one season in a team that is built around his strengths and given license to play can do. And anyone that sat there now, and I don't think there's many. I think mostly people have got excited about this signing, and rightly so. Anyone who sat there now saying, "Oh yeah, but he only played in the Farmers League," well, Lacazette and Aubameyang haven't turned out too badly, have they? So I wouldn't hold that against him.
I didn't realise that Aubameyang is French. He's not. He's born in France.
Well, yeah, he's Gabonese.
He plays for the Gabon, but it's the same with Pepe. He's born in France as well. I always wondered why Aubameyang and Lacazette got on so well. Well, they're both French, aren't they?
It's the French African thing, isn't it? It's like Patrick Vieira, isn't it?
That's what won France the World Cup in Senegal.
Yeah, so there's a very big crossover between the sort of French African link ups and family looms and whatnot. So yeah. But yeah, as you rightly say, Pepe is Ivorian. He follows Kolo Touré, Manu Aboué, and Gervinho, of course. And he interestingly follows the exact same path that Gervinho had, because if you remember, Gervinho was playing for Lille when we signed him as well.
10 million, 10.3 million, I think.
Yeah.
So we got those front three. So in an ideal world, everyone's fit. That's going to be our front three. Where do you see other players fitting in around them in the rest of the midfield? I mean, I suppose mainly in the Ozil hole is the only one we really need to worry about.
Yeah, I mean,
who did he have doing that for him at Lille? And is that player in the same sort of role as Ozil does for us?
I think it'd be fair to say Mesut Ozil is a better player than Jonathan Ikone, if I'm honest. But Ikone is a different type of player. He's more of a sort of low centre of gravity, nippy kind of 10 who will go and break the lines and offers a goal threat. Mesut isn't that type of player. Mesut's more of a sit deeper and pull the strings and play either the pass before the pass, or the killer ball through the middle from a longer distance out. I think if you can get the best out of Mesut Ozil, and this is another reason why I really like this signing. If Unai Emery and Mesut Ozil have made peace this summer, which who knows, but it sounds like the relationship is better than it was. This sort of signing is the sort of signing that Mesut's eyes might light up, because he's going to make those runs. Do you remember when Alexis and Mesut first linked up, and you had all those assists, and they were magnificent together? Teams struggled to defend against Aubameyang and Lacazette last year. Even when we were playing our worst football, they still struggled to contain our front two. When you add another creative, quick, dynamic centre forward or wide forward into that mix, which we have done, they're not going to know who to mark first. Everybody knows about Aubameyang now. Everybody knows about Lacazette. But while they're marking those two, Pepe will be in the back door. So and if you've got Mesut, who still on his day, like it or not, don't hate the player, hate the game. Did I just say that? Yeah, I did. But on his day, he's still one of the best number 10s in world football on his day. And it's a dying art, but Mesut is still absolutely world class. And he only needs
30.
Yeah, but he only needs the right players to run onto those through balls, and he could have a field day. And that's not even considering Henrik Mkhitaryan, who, flattered to deceive at times last year, but again has looked pretty good in pre-season and looks rejuvenated. And Alex Iwobi, who we've not really even seen in pre-season. And then you throw in youngsters like Reece Nelson and Bukayo Saka, Bukayo Saka, who interestingly Unai Emery mentioned in the Pepe signing and said, we've got Saka who's going to learn. He's going to learn so much from Pepe. So you're bringing on players who can potentially shadow these established internationals as well. And I don't think we had an African Cup of Nations this summer, didn't we? So it's not like we're going to lose him in January for 17 weeks like usual. Yeah. So it's genuinely blown me away. And I'm very, very excited. And I think it's going to be a signing that's going to get bums on seats. I think he's going to shift a lot of shirts, which can't help.
Someone said they sold 10 million's worth already, which is half of the initial fee.
There you go. So, and he's a very marketable guy. And if you haven't watched the behind the scenes arrival video on Arsenal's YouTube, that's worth a watch as well. He looks like a player who's ready for the challenge and is excited. And what I really loved is when they presented him with the shirt, and you just saw on his face, his eyes lit up as if to sort of say, "Poof, I've made it." So I think we've got a real asset on our hands. And if you look at it slightly from the backwards and coming forwards way, if this works out, fantastic. We're going to get a brilliant player. What we're also going to get is a hugely marketable and sellable asset at 24. If he kicks on, and we do continue to struggle, which I hope we don't, but if we do, he'll go for 3-4 times as much as we bought him for in 2 years' time if he progresses like he did last year.
I've just looked, and just to make £10 million worth of shirt sales, you'd have to sell 250,000 shirts in a day. No, they haven't done that. I don't think that's a fact. Right, so you were saying Ozil's best season in the Premier League was 19 assists in 35 games. In his 6 seasons with Arsenal, has he ever been in a situation where he's got 3 people more hungry for assists than he has now? Because I don't think he has.
No, because as I mentioned, the season under Alexis, he was our one goal threat, wasn't he? He was the guy who was carrying that team. Obviously, we didn't have an Ian Wright in those days, so no, I don't think so. I think the argument with Mesut is always, well, if he's not assisting, what does he do? And that argument for me has always been flawed, because he does a lot in and around. He does a lot of what I call third and fourth assists, which I know are not tallied. But if you look at the amount of goals that are scored, sort of started with Mesut or Mesut involved in them, there's a lot of those. And it's almost like, if he's not running lots and he's not doing a lot, it's nonsense. He's got to be. The biggest problem you have with Mesut is you have to have players like Pepe and Aubameyang and Lacazette to create the movement, because it's a little bit like giving a carpenter tools made of ice. As soon as he hammers them in, they're just going to break. So it's I don't know where I got ice from, but that's where I'm going with that. But it's pointless.
Made of jam.
Made of jam, or giving somebody a gun without bullets. It's just pointless. Meza is that gun, and you've got to feed in the bullets. So I genuinely think this. If this, put it this way, if this signing doesn't inspire Meza to have the best season he's had in years, then nothing will. Because if you look at the Real Madrid side he came out of to join Arsenal, this front three is as close as he would have had back then.
Would it be Ronaldo, Benzema, and
I think it was, who was it then? Ronaldo, Benzema, and
Butricano.
I'm trying to think who else it would have been then, but
maybe they only played two up front and him behind.
Yeah, it would have been before Modric. No, I'm sure it was a three, but I don't know who the third one was. Somebody will be shouting at their wireless now who it was. But yeah, it's really exciting, and who knows who still might come in as well. That's the thing. So be excited.
So your expectations for him next season, if you had to if he's going to play in that wide position, moving around. Do you think he'll play before we started? I said I just looked at last season for Lille, and he played 38. He played all 38 league games, and only one of them he came off a few of them he came off in the late 80s. He came off in the 86, 89, 90, 90, 90. Every other game, apart from the last one of the season, he played the full 90 minutes, all at the right wing, doing the same thing the whole time. We were going to mention PSG, weren't we? For our dear listener. The home game against PSG v Lille, PSG won it 2-1, and Pepe scored a goal. But then the amazing one was the Lille home game, Lille 5, PSG 1, and Pepe got a goal and got 2 assists. How did that happen?
Well, PSG were in a little bit of a stumble at that point. They'd been beaten in the Coupe de France from memory. In the final of that, they'd won the league many moons ago. They had that slightly unfortunate Manchester United game in the Champions League. I think it's fair to say they were playing out games at that point, but that's not to take anything away from Lille, who I think, from memory, went behind in that game as well. But they blew PSG away, and again, it was another game that Pepe shone in, and I'm really genuinely quite surprised at how little interest there was in the player this summer. It's almost like teams forgot, and I was convinced that he was going to go to Bayern. That to me seemed like a good fit with Robben and Ribéry coming to an end. Bayern looking to refresh their forward line. When that famous David Ornstein quote went out on July the 13th, which was when he first said that Arsenal had not submitted a bid and do not have the level of money being reported to sign him. I quoted that tweet and I said, this is obvious. People who actually believe we're in the running to sign Pepe are bonkers. So, that gives you an idea just of how much this signing has come completely out of nowhere. But yeah, that PSG game, I think, sort of almost put a nice crown on what was a brilliant season for him. And there was no way he was going to stay at Lille beyond this season. He was always going to move. But as I say, that particular game, I think there was Bayern scouts at that game as well, and I was convinced that would be it. He was so good that night. Him and Bamba absolutely tore PSG a new one, and they had no answer to it. And that was kind of the game where I think everyone looked at it and said, yeah, Lille are going to get the Champions League. They're going to finish second, and those Pepe and Bamba in particular, as well as Southampton fans might remember, Rui Fonte had a brilliant season as well. All these sort of players were people looking at them going, this side is really, really good, really talented and young and fresh and exciting. And again, we've got probably the pick of them at 24 years of age.
Well, there you go, people. We've done half an hour on who's probably our most exciting signing since, when? If you take everything into consideration. Henry? People didn't know who he was, really, did they?
Well, that's the thing. He was a sort of a failed winger at Juventus at the time, wasn't he? So, probably Alexis. We got him from Udinese, didn't we? And I would say, in terms of exciting, from Barca, of course we did. Sorry, previous Udinese. Just in terms of knowing a bit about what a player can do, and we might sign Kieran Tierney. Obviously, we signed Dani Ceballos, and people are excited because they're new, fresh faces. But I think if you asked everybody on the street what those two can bring, a few people would shrug and go, well, stuff and things. I don't think they'd really know. When you say we're signing a pacey, attacking, direct, flamboyant, wide forward, that gets people's pockets buzzing, doesn't it? Because that's the sort of player you want to sign. Every club wants to sign a new striker or a new winger, somebody who's going to get you goals, because ultimately that's what gets bums on seats, that's what gets the excitement, and that's what gets tongues wagging. And I think at the moment there's a lot of very envious fans from a certain other borough of North London, and I think, dare to say, even a certain area of Manchester and a certain area of Liverpool are looking on at us a little bit enviously, going, okay, well, where are our signings then? So it's good. It's really good. And obviously, before we sign off, our thoughts are with Mauricio Pochettino. It must be really difficult knowing that you are just a coach, and Daniel Levy has his hand up your anus and makes you speak and do what he wants when he wants. So my heart bleeds for you. It really does.
Dear, oh dear, oh dear. And also, he's now the third most expensive Premier League player of all time, which is also lovely.
That's a start. Until, of course, Man United signed Paulo Dybala, and that will go backwards again.
No, he's looking like he's going somewhere else now. I was reading they've offered another Italian club want him, I think. Another swap deal with someone. There again, we're not here to talk about a deal. Piero Wonderland isn't here just yet.
No, he's not off to Barnet. That's all we care about, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. Right. Thank you very much for your time, Kris. It's been wonderful as usual.
A pleasure. I look forward to witnessing the rise of one Nicolas Pepe, and yes, let's make Arsenal Ligue 1 again. Yes.
And on those wise words, dear viewer and listeners at home or on the bus, we will speak to you later. Up the Arsenal. Just remember, you got to press 2 different buttons to end it, and then you wait a bit.